And I think we are up. Dr. Lloyd, thank you for being here. I think we're going to have a great conversation. How you doing?
I'm doing fine. I'm excited about the opportunity to talk with you.
Sure.
And so let's see what we can do and make it interesting for the folks who are listening.
Exactly. So, well, I guess we'll start off, and I'm sure you've already had this question, though, but, I know for 25 years you've been a clinical psychologist. You're also...
Actually, 40 years.
Oh, 40 years. Okay. Sorry.
I'm an old guy, man.
Okay, so 40 years. You just got the Lifestyle Intelligence app going. I think that's your latest project. What was the motivation to get this going? And if you want to kind of give a little bit of, I know that was kind of a really vague definition of background, but if you want to give a little brief background of yourself and all that, we can go from there.
Well, I mean, in terms of, I had a personal interest in this because all the issues that Lifestyle Intelligence LQ addresses were personal problems for me at a certain moment in time. So I had firsthand experience before I ever knew that these things were concepts that were ultimately going to be talked about. So in other words, eating, sleeping, and exercising / moving were things that were beyond the scope of anything I understood growing up. Remember, I grew up in the 50s and the 60s. Sure. So nutrition meant you had enough to eat. Exercise was something you did in gym, right? And sleep was an annoyance just so you didn't fall asleep in the middle of the afternoon. That was the totality of what life was like back then. Nobody had any understanding of anything. Okay. So little by little, things began to change, beginning first with Halbert Dunn, who coined the term wellness, which I just found out was a combination of well-being and fitness. I never knew that until a couple of days ago. It was which is kind of strange, wellness. It's kind of a strange kind of term. Anyway, that goes back to the 1950s. It fell flat. It went nowhere, but was brought back in the 70s when things began to change. And things began to change when there was now evidence to suggest that certain lifestyle issues were problematic and causing illness, right? I mean, hello, cardiovascular stuff and all those kinds of things. And the exercise boom followed thereafter. And eventually things started to change where there was now momentum. People took health seriously.
Sure.
Okay, so you would think that as a consequence of that, there would be a positive evolutionary move so that people, more and more people, would be healthier and healthier. Right. Because with all this information about exercise, diet, and the key to the whole thing, sleep, okay, now we know. So what happened? Wrong. We have actually headed in the opposite direction. We steered the ship directly into the iceberg, where by 2030, it's projected that we're going to 50% of the country is going to be obese. Now, think about that. How could that possibly happen given the volume of information? People are deluged with information about what they should be doing.
Sure.
Nothing sticks. How come? Well, part of it, I think, is language. I don't think wellness has enough clout to get people hooked into something. Mm-hmm. So I said to myself, is there any way that things can be said in a way that would get their attention and make it, I'm going to use this with quotes, sexier, something that has some sizzle to it.
I understand.
Right? Go ahead.
No, yeah, I understand that. And I'm agreeing with everything that you're saying that, with the term wellness, I work in higher education and I used to work in our recreation center and we would call it recreation and wellness. But a lot of people would always have like, what is your definition of wellness? And everyone had their completely, like I said, a complete different term of what we're saying,
Thank you. Basically, if everybody has a different definition, then there is no definition.
And that's what it is. That was what I thought.
It's essentially meaningless. Thank you.
Yeah, that's exactly what I thought. And even asking, students at the university what they thought, it was exactly across the board. Mainly it's kind of the same concept, but not related at all at the same time. Yeah, if that makes sense.
So I'm saying to myself, what can possibly be done to help change the trajectory? Okay, so back in 1990, two psychologists. Let me see if I get it. John Mayer, who was not the singer, and another guy by the name, I think it was Peter Salovey. They were Yale psychologists, I believe. They wrote an article in a social psychology journal, and it was called emotional intelligence, EQ.
Right.
Okay, so suddenly a whole bunch of characteristics that were always viewed in isolation, like empathy, like self-awareness, like interpersonal social skills, emotional regulation, all of these things were bits and pieces at the fringes of people's awareness. These were not the things that were front and center in the culture, but they were there. Suddenly, these guys said, wait a minute, we can put these four or five concepts under an umbrella concept. We'll call it emotional intelligence, EQ. Now, this was sexy. Now, because intelligence, when something is smart, it's always good.
Sure.
So now we had two intelligences. We had IQ, which everybody was aware of, the number, math, language skills. And now we had emotional intelligence. And this was really important for business because we needed the emotionally intelligent chief executive officer. I mean, that was that sexy thing in business. Emotion. So I'm thinking, well, that's a great model. Okay, what can I do with this and put it all together and make it useful for people when it comes to making healthy choices? So I started out with organic intelligence. Okay, the reason being that I figured, well, we'll start at the beginning, literally, when you are an infant. What is your experience? Sensation. When you're an infant, sensation is cognition.
Okay.
We have no abstract thinking. So what's going on in your head is what's going on in your body. So
Right.
what are the key parts? There is eating, which involves when to eat and how much to eat. There is sleeping, when, how much, and there is movement, which is them just flopping around doing what they need to do to stimulate their brain. I'm thinking, oh, okay, but what else needs to be put into the thing? Because organic intelligence was confusing for me because I just had a hunch that wouldn't do it. So I said, well, the key part as you're an adult is now, in addition to sensory information, is intellectual information.
Sure.
Is what do you need to know in order to make the best decisions for yourself?
Yeah.
And then I wrote an article in which I put all of that, wrote this out exactly like I'm talking to you about it. And I said to me, at that time, I had no idea that it would evolve into an app. It was just something I had to put down because I was annoyed. It's like, come on, we have to do better than this.
Right.
For no other reason. I mean, this is a selfish reason, but everybody probably would agree. More and more kids are getting sick at an earlier age of degenerative kinds of stuff. I mean, I've heard of instances of kids in high school getting bypass surgery. I mean, think about that. So if that's happening, if more and more children are getting these diseases earlier, how much is that going to cost? And how much is your health insurance going to cost?
Exactly.
Infinitely more than it is currently costing.
Yeah.
Consequently, I figured, okay, this is now something that I think I can do. So now, what do I do? Okay, interesting concept, but it kind of needs a little bit more sizzle and pop. Like, what does that mean? How do you translate this into something? So I'm figuring, okay, how do you learn? You learn by repetition, and you learn by being reinforced when you do something successfully, whether it's you figuring out you did something successfully and feel good about it, or whether somebody else is giving you feedback.
For sure.
So the whole idea is to provide people opportunities to hear things a lot. Hence, the app is structured so that the beginning, the first 6, 7, 8 months of it, I show up on your phone reminding you today is a day for a lifestyle intelligent 3-minute episode. And I will talk to you for 3 minutes, talking about stuff that's really important in a way that will get your attention.
So
I do that.
Kind of keep them motivated for 3 minutes. Or
for 3 minutes. It's just, I slow you down, and then I present a bit of information. Okay, that's fine. I do it 5 times a week.
Okay.
More, and the whole idea is you keep hearing me 5 days a week. Eventually, and the whole idea is The cognitive baton is passed from me to you. Okay. So the whole idea is you hear me 5 times a week, week after week after week. The whole idea is eventually you're going to start thinking, hopefully, you will eventually start thinking along the lines of what I am presenting. So you begin to make better choices for yourself at those key moments in time.
Sure.
And that's so we basically information and psychology. That's the overall framework of this. There's another component, but we can talk about this a little more and then we can get to that.
Okay. Yeah. But that's a great point, just because, a lot of people don't even know where to, and I'm generally speaking, of course, they don't know where to start. They don't know where to get the information. And, if somebody came up to me and said they wanted to lose 10 pounds in a month or whatever, but, they get a diet or whatever, they try it for a week and they stop, it's because they were inconsistent, and a lot of success is just staying consistent and like every day doing, exactly point A, point B, point C, and finding out what works for you and what, where it doesn't work for you. And like you said, you're giving them information for 3 minutes a day, and that consistency starts to build up. It's like a compound effect, it just goes over and over and over. They get the information, they're given that positive reinforcement, and boom, hopefully after quite some time, some magic happens and they almost reach whatever goal they had intended for themselves.
We live in a culture where information happens very quickly and then disappears because you're always distracted by things, right? I came across a piece of information maybe 5 years ago. For me, it was singularly the most significant piece of lifestyle intelligent information that I'd ever come across. It was about sleep. Okay. And I'm reading this and I'm going, oh my goodness, this is an incredible bit of information.
Right.
When we sleep, at some point, I'm not quite sure when during the sleep cycle this happens, the spaces between your brain cells open up. Okay. And then cerebrospinal fluid pours into these open channels. And then the brain goes into dishwasher effect and cleans itself. I'm reading this thing and I'm going, I can't say it on air because it would be inappropriate. Like, holy bleep, holy bleep. I mean, I'm thinking to myself, if there was ever a piece of information about lifestyle, especially sleep, that would gather people together and think about how important it is, it's got to be this. Because immediately you think, well, what happens, or you just should be thinking about, well, what happens if you don't clean your brain? Think about that. I mean, how you don't have to be a neuroscientist to realize your brain's going to get filled up with gunk.
For sure.
And a gunked up brain ain't good.
Do you know who Matt Walker is?
No.
He's a professor at the University of Cal, and he actually wrote a book on, I think it's called Why We Sleep. And that's exactly one of his points in the book. And I can't remember it off the top of my head, but one of it's that when we sleep, that I think it was like 750 genes. And it was basically what you put, but 711 of them, if they don't get cleaned out or washed, like that gunk you're talking about, a lot of those genes, like over time, will compound into certain diseases. Like I think it was like dementia and memory loss. And
I mean, how do you not immediately go to, Alzheimer's disease or some other form of dementia? I mean, how do you not immediately think about that? And I'm thinking, this is so important. This is going to go viral. The internet is going to light up with this bit of information. I could not have been more wrong. It came, it left, and I must have been the only person thinking, did I miss something here? What exactly is happening? We're talking about your brain, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it became culturally accepted, and I agree 100% with you. If I'm not getting my 7 or 8 hours of sleep, that's my thing. But again, I think it came culturally accepted that, all these, let's say, big time business people, entrepreneurs, movie stars, they have that mentality of, I only need 5 hours of sleep and I can take on the day and nothing goes wrong and I'm okay every day, day in and day out. And it's just like, well, that's okay. But I mean, what kind of quality of work are you doing? And it's like that.
You don't get it.
Yeah.
This is not a thing to be macho about.
And I think that's what got culturally accepted among, young people, thinking that, if I want to be an entrepreneur, I have to work 16 hours a day and sleep on my floor and not get any good sleep. And that's great if that's what you want to do. But again, that long-term effect of like, what are you really doing to your brain and your health, and what's going to happen eventually? I mean, are you going to come up with these certain diseases? And the brain doesn't want that. It needs time to reset its batteries and go back to neutral.
I say the same thing to every one of my clients who comes in. Let's get it straight. The most important thing you do in life is sleep.
Sure.
Now, most people don't like to think that. That's just a waste of time. What are you talking about, Lloyd? Come on, wake up. No, it is singularly the most important. Think about this. There's one piece of information about sleep that tends to go unnoticed because it's not a biochemical, neurological, and that is, it takes up 1/3 of your life. And during that time frame, that 1/3, while you're asleep, you are completely vulnerable. Think how important this must be for your brain to tune out and leave you. Because when this species first evolved, we're out on the plains living in caves and and there's some nasty folks out there that want to have us for lunch, right? And yet we're going to make sure that we get enough sleep because that's how important it is.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I can reinforce, I jump up and down to get people's attention to make sure that that's one of the first questions I ask people in my office, because if you're going to help them psychologically doing therapy, they have to do these other things too to maximize what their potential is. Because if you don't get enough sleep, exercise, you need healthy, all the other stuff that people try to do in therapy gets compromised, right? So this is either look at it and think of your life as really important, or you go about playing with your phone and doing video games. And that's it's just not cool.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly with you that it goes so unrecognized how much sleep, not only for the brain, but I mean, even in that book, he talks about it's the single most thing you can do for the brain and the body. And, as far as like, I'm one of these CrossFit bros, and as far as recovery and just resting, and like there's people in there who think they got to be doing, 4 exercise or 4 different workouts a day and not giving their body a break. And it's just like, hey, that's fine in the short run. But again, in the long run, you're only killing yourself. And I don't understand why, like you said, like where this mentality came from that we don't need sleep. And
your point about overdoing it is, I mean, if you're going to overdo it, it's better overdoing it than not doing it at all. But still, life is about not doing it all the time. It's doing it enough. You need enough exercise. You need enough sleep, and you need to pay attention to what you eat and really pay attention. Because most people, when it comes to eating, that whole appetite thing, it's amazing how much information, sensory information, people have forgotten. Why? 2 reasons. There is eating with the family and the family trance taking over. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like everybody, you look around and you watch what everybody's doing, and before you know it, you're modeling what everybody's doing. And when I grew up, you should finish everything on your plate because kids are starving in Africa. As if somehow those 2 things fit together. But the most important thing is how so easily we get seduced by our world, right? Tune out. Don't pay any attention at all and forget about that sensory experience that is essential to making good choices for ourselves, right? I mean, eating, just knowing when to eat, when to stop, when are you full? Hello, right? No, you don't have to finish everything on your plate. No, you stopped being hungry about 30 minutes ago, but you're still, it's remarkable how those things are still woven into the fabric of people's minds based on modeling. Now, modeling's supposedly a good thing too, because you can pick up good things, right, while you're watching people. But unfortunately, believe me, I know because I did everything wrong.
How do you mean?
Completely. I was much bigger when I was younger, had no idea about how I should be eating, when I should be eating. I'd come home from school, eat a bologna sandwich at 3:00 in the afternoon, eat dinner at 6. Why? Because it was dinner time.
Sure.
Who knew, right?
Yeah.
All that kind. I remember driving by my high school back in the late 60s after I'd already graduated and seeing some guy running around the track. And I'm thinking to myself, what is that idiot doing? Because that exercise thing hadn't happened yet. So I had no idea. What? He's just running around the track for what? Who does that? Nobody did that. But suddenly that became part of the culture, and in a good way. And there are far more people exercising, but not enough.
Yeah.
A lot of folks don't know they don't need to do anything elaborately. They just need to go out and walk for a half hour, 45 minutes a day, and keep track of it. That'll be sufficient to maintain who you are and avoid any degenerative diseases. Because at age 30, all hell breaks loose if you're not careful. That's it.
I know. Yeah, it's one of those things too that it's so easy to come up with excuses to, and there's always a million reasons to say no to something. And that, hey, I'll just start. I'll start Monday. Then Monday comes around. Oh well, I got this going on. I can't do it. I don't have time for that. It's like, well, then you just don't want to. You don't want to be healthy. And then there's also, and again, I don't want to keep bringing up like social media and the cultural narratives and stuff. But who Jordan Peterson is?
Yeah.
Yeah, so he just got banned from Twitter for saying like the that model on Sports Illustrated was not beautiful or something along those lines. So yeah, and like she was a pretty large woman, so it's one of those things that we're almost accepting it to be okay to be a big person or obese in America. And when you said that by 2030 would be over 50%, we're all pretty close there. I thought we were already at 40%.
Well, it's go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, you're fine. And it's just one of those things that it's just like understand if you want to be that way and if you're happy, fine, that's great. If you're not hurting yourself, if you're not hurting anyone else, do whatever you want to do. That's my mentality on it. But we shouldn't be promoting that type of beauty or that type of things. Like that's not really healthy in the long run.
I watch television a lot.
Sure.
And I watch lots of commercials. Have you noticed that obviously commercials, because the culture is getting bigger, there are more and more bigger people in the advertisements, right? And now if you're a kid and you're watching that, then basically what you're seeing is a visual hypnotic suggestion. This is normal. This is what you're going to be looking like when you get older, because there are more and more of these adults who look like this, and we want to let you know that it's okay. It is okay. It's just not good.
When you say
choice, you can do that, of course.
When you say hypnotic, I mean, are you also mean like a subliminal messaging too at the same time, or is that different?
Well, because I don't think anybody's looking at that and saying to themselves, "Wow, this is really interesting," where they're programming people to have this be what is normal, and it actually is normal only because of the fact more and more people are heavy. It's just not healthy, right?
I'm with you.
And I mean, and the size of the fast food stuff that they put in those advertisements, the size of a spare tire coming at you, right? It looks like a tire.
Yeah.
And all of that stuff. And it's like over and over again, we're being seduced into that as, that's okay. Yeah, it's cool. We got all these famous people advertising with it, right? Promoting it.
Well, not only that, yesterday being the 4th of July, who was it up your way? Joey Chestnut ate 76 hot dogs and I fried under 10 minutes or whatever it was. And it's like, he's a champion, and then they were promoting, I think he had a broken leg or something. It's, he's the Michael Jordan of hot dog eating. It's like, that's not really that cool, I mean,
you would think that at this time that would be removed from the national anthem. I mean, come on, a hot dog eating contest when half the country is obese and you're having somebody stuff hideously unhealthy food into their body. I'm surprised somebody doesn't just have a heart attack right during the course of the thing.
I don't doubt it. I mean, and now he looks like, a pretty skinny guy, I guess. I don't ever really paid a lot of attention to him, but 76 hot dogs all at once on your stomach. And they say they trained for that. So I don't even know where you begin to train for something like that. But there was another one, they would drink a gallon of lemonade and under a certain amount. And it's like, I don't get it. That's what's so accepted. That's what little kids are seeing. People say, I want to do that one day. And it's, why would you ever want to? I mean, I don't know. I don't get maybe it's just me, and I don't get the fixation of, I ate 76 hot dogs and now I'm one of the greatest people on earth.
I can't watch that. And why, when you realize that here we're a culture that is now becoming more and more obese, that you would sensationalize a hot dog eating contest as a sporting event and call somebody a world champion, and this is a good thing. Yeah. I mean, it's ludicrous, doesn't quite capture it.
Do you think it's going to turn around? I mean, do you think eventually we're going to hit a peak that's just like, hey, people are going to start to realize I'm not as healthy as, I thought COVID, by bringing the pandemic up, was going to and we don't have to talk about COVID or anything, but was going to kind of reverse all this. And maybe promote healthier lifestyles and people being more aware of, hey, was I actually healthy or as healthy as I thought I was or not? Does that kind of make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah, I grew up with the kind of lifestyle we were just talking about.
Sure.
And to give you an idea of the magnitude of how difficult it is to change eating habits when you've had them a good portion of your life. Hold on one second. Are we okay? We okay? Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're fine.
Okay. My dad suffered from cardiovascular disease, combination of completely unhealthy diet and smoking cigarettes. So he needed cardio bypass surgery. All right. So this is 1973. So he went to the Cleveland Clinic because they were at the forefront of doing this. And I saw him before the surgery, and I found out after the surgery that his arteries were so bad that instead of having 4 bypasses, he was only able to have 1. That's how damaged his arteries were. Think about that.
Wow.
So you're the only person I know who ever failed cardiac bypass surgery. Okay, so now he has 1 good artery. Now he's got to be on all this kind of medication just to keep him alive. Okay. So my dad, his whole life, ate steak and French fries and blueberry pie and bagels and cream cheese and cream in his coffee. I mean, he never I don't think he ever had a gram of fiber in his life. Okay. So we go out to dinner and we're ordering. I order, my wife orders, my mom comes to my dad. But keep in mind, he's out of the hospital now for about 3 weeks. Okay. What does he order? Steak and French fries. And I look at my wife and in complete, she says, don't say anything. It's not going to help. Yeah. And that's, most people get stuck in that pattern. It's like, I think it's easier to change your religion than it is to change your diet.
I don't doubt it. Yeah. I mean, it's like what you said, if you build that pattern up, I've had family members like, hey, I've ate this ever since I was a kid. I'm fine. It's like, well, that's maybe back in the day, like you were saying in the 50s, 60s or 70s, but there was not a lot of information out then. And
now there is.
Exactly.
And I don't know what kind of audience you have in terms of age.
It's really broad. It's all over.
It's really broad because the key number for most people is 30 years. Yeah. At 30, right, if you can grab a hold of yourself and make the changes, then all of the other issues that typically will occur subsequent to that, a good chance they won't happen. It's specifically the way your body metabolism slows after 30, with like a point a year, which doesn't sound like very much until you're 40. You know what I mean? And then people wonder why they've eaten the same and they're now 20 pounds heavier over the course of a decade. And then 30 pounds heavier and then 40 pounds heavier. And they wonder, I don't understand. I didn't change anything. Correct.
Yeah. Like people are, again, I don't want to bring this, up, but it's like, they're just not very self-aware of like what's going on. And this is what little by little, their eating adds up over time. And it's one of those also, I'm currently reading, or almost finished, it's called Sacred Cow, and it's by Robert Wolf. And he was talking about these food studies that people do on themselves. And when they ask, how many alcoholic drinks do you have a day? Or how often do you eat, I don't know, like gummy bears or whatever you want to say. And like they actually lie on those tests because people don't want to actually be real truthful to themselves of what they're actually really doing.
The point that you bring up is singularly, and I mean this, singularly the most important aspect of all of this. It's the way we bullshit ourselves. The self-cons we run all the time. When somebody comes into my office and I'm doing an initial intake, I'm going to ask them about their lifestyle. Say, you do much any drinking? Say, yeah. How much do you drink? And I'll get the typical, 1, 1.5. Automatically, it's 2 to 3, right? And if it's across the board because people want to feel comfortable, they want to feel safer, they want to feel like they're doing things correctly. So they distort information. Exactly. And when you distort information and lie to yourself, well, hello, that's not a good thing. So that's the big thing.
Yeah, that's one thing. If you're having to doubt yourself or lie to the person across from you, then that should be a big red flag automatically to know maybe what I am doing is not the right way about doing it. Maybe there's a different way. Maybe there's a better way. The way I refer to this in lifestyle in the app is called jiggling the data, changing the numbers in your head, making everything sound a lot better than it actually is. Oh. And because I reinforce this over and over again. That's one of the key themes to the whole thing. Getting rid of the self-con
that people have so they can actually focus, make a change, sustain it. To create, and this is a statistical concept, a new mean, a new average, right? You want to generate a series of changes that culminate in something where the average things that you do have now systematically changed: eating, moving, sleeping. So you sleep more, you exercise more, you eat less, you eat better. You do it incrementally. Occasionally, you'll fall back a little bit.
Sure.
You'll have one of those moments or days or weeks or whatever, right? The most important thing is it's not only natural for that to happen, it's essential for that to happen, because then you learn to come back from those moments where you've fallen down. You learn to pick yourself back up and go, say, no, I had a groove going, I can get the groove going again. The whole idea is a new average where you sleep more, you exercise more, and you eat less, and you eat better. So for everybody who's listening right now, that was a series of hypnotic suggestions for you. Okay?
So
really.
Is that kind of what when you're promoting your 3-minute track, is that kind of what the stuff you're saying to the person?
Those issues are reinforced over and over again from different angles. I don't say the same thing in the same way each time. No.
Gotcha.
I will bring back, I will say, I found something that references what we've talked about so many times before, but it's just another angle, another way of looking at the same thing. Yeah. It's like I said, repetition,
sure,
reinforcement. You can do this because if you're listening to me on these tracks, you're interested and you want to, because I try to make it feel as if the relationship that's taking place is with me and you alone, as if I'm talking directly to the listener.
Good.
I really enjoy doing these kinds of things, and so I'm hoping that people can get a lot of benefit from it, because I think it's useful.
Is a lot of the clients that you work with, is that the narrative, or the most common theme is that they come to you when they've kind of ran out of every other thing to try to help themselves?
They're still coming to me primarily for the psychological issues they're having problems with. So whether they're depressed or anxious or angry, having problems with a relationship, all of those kinds of things. But I weave these into what we do, because because if you do these well, you will be able to make these other changes easier to actualize.
Yeah.
Right? Everything is tied in time together.
And, I agree. Yeah.
And timing is everything, as we know.
When you put them all together, that seems to fix other issues. For example, there's days when I get out of work and say, man, I don't want to go do my training. I don't want to go do my workouts. And
who hasn't had that feeling?
Dude, yeah. And I get down there.
It's normal.
Yeah, and I get down there and I'm, it's self-discipline. I get down there and I feel so much better after doing it. Every stress is relieved. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm glad I got down here. I picked up something heavy. I feel good about myself now. And yeah, but it's just one of those things that's kind of creating that self-discipline and that habits that you were talking about too. But there's always, there's good days and bad days, but you just got to kind of push through it.
And the key thing is it's what you do most of the time that matters. So if you're consistent most of the time, you're going to be okay. And you're going to be really happy with yourself. So you're that feeling about yourself, that self-esteem thing, like I'm really proud of what I've accomplished. I look like a different person now. Right? And that's a huge deal. Huge, right? And getting used to that and getting used to the feedback, but getting attention in a different way. Sometimes people have problems. That's why there's a portion of weight-related issues that have to do with feeling safe. And you don't want to be that person who has to deal with the world differently.
Yeah.
Right? So we all, a lot, maybe that resonated with a couple of people listening to us right now.
Yeah, and I hope it did. It's because, I've seen it firsthand. When I'm coaching my classes and stuff, when members are talking to me about certain aspects like that, I've seen it, firsthand. And it's not just that, a lot of people I think do think it's just them, but it's not. There's a lot of people who maybe think the same way they do or have the same problems that they do. And it's, just finding, like you said, there's tons of information out there now, and there's so many things that you can do. And just because one thing doesn't work, you try another thing, and then you find what works for you. Some people don't want to get up and, there's ultra marathon people, who run every day. Well, you don't have to do that. You can just
God. No. That's not, no. You want to do something that's just enough to burn some calories, enough calories, and keep your heart and brain functioning optimally. Because most people don't realize when they think of exercise, they think of their heart, because your heart is pumping.
Sure.
But it is equally as important for your brain. And even innocuous movement, that everyday stuff, while you're sitting at your desk and you get up for 3 minutes and walk around, critically important for your brain. Most people don't know that. So they'll sit forever. No, get up every hour, move around. Movement. We would look at little kids. Do little kids? Well, now they're looking at screens, but when they're actually little and they don't have that to distract them, little kids are in movement all the time.
Right.
All the time.
Yeah, Peter Attia, he's a doctor, and he talks about, not only just working for your body, but your mind too. And that one of the keys to longevity is challenging yourself and, doing these little hard things day by day to keep yourself going. Little challenges, whether it be, if you want to train for a marathon, or if you just want to be able to run a mile eventually, or whatever it is, but you have to do those things. And that's one of those key to becoming, like I said, longevity. That's one of my goals in life, is to become a centurion, hopefully. So, yeah.
Yeah, why not, right?
Yeah, man, why not? But it's with the access of information and all the new things that are coming out day by day basis, it's very well possible. As people are living longer now, and for example, the food thing is still kind of an issue, but learning how to eat, because there's so much food, it's so easy to get trapped into those junk food, sweet and salty kind of mixes, but it's just a matter of just changing those habits. But yeah, it's easy to do. It's easy to mess up, and it's almost want you to mess up. It's just so easy to. It's
the culture reinforces you failing.
Yeah.
Right. They want you to. The last thing they want is for you to become healthy, because if everybody becomes healthy, how many companies and how many products disappear from the shelves because there's just not enough people buying them. Right. So if you want to follow where the problem lies, follow the money. As that famous philosopher Deep Throat once said, follow the money.
Yeah,
that's always the case.
Bringing that book back up again, that was one of the things they found evidence where sugar companies were paying off all these tests from certain studies just to say, hey, no, it wasn't sugar doing that. It was saturated fats or whatever. It was like, what? How could they do that? But yeah, it's just, and that's where it's just a lot of misinformation out there too. But I'm glad that, you're one of those guys promoting, these healthy lifestyles and moving, eating, sleeping, and things that go on,
By the way, interesting sidebar to how I first got interested in this. And you would think it had more to do with information and science, in psychology and all that kind of stuff. Completely wrong. Nope.
What was it?
Other than meeting my wife, which was obviously the most important event that ever took place in my life. The other event was the two of us, after getting married, we were living in Los Angeles for a couple of years, a long time ago.
Yeah.
And an old high school friend gave me a call. I hadn't seen him in 6 years. And I said, hey, why don't you come over for dinner? And he said, sure. So he comes over, rings the bell. I open the door. First thing out of his mouth was, wow, did you gain weight? That was the first thing he said to me after not having seen me for 6 years. That moment of embarrassment and shame changed my life forever. And that's how I got started thinking about this. Had nothing to do with science or psychology or nutrition. It just was embarrassment. I never wanted to ever hear that again.
I'm glad. Yeah.
Right.
You can't do that nowadays. You can't fat shame anybody. But, I'm one of those guys, I need stuff like that. I would hope if one of my buddies told me that, like, hey, you've been eating good or whatever. It's like, okay, all right, we hit a turn. We got to change something here. I don't like this anymore. But yeah, a lot of people need that motivation. I feel like, even though it's not, it's not praised upon, obviously. And I'm not saying you should go fat shaming people, but yeah, I'm very similar to you. That would make me want to go turn my life around.
I got to tell you, it was a feeling that is hard to describe. But I didn't know anything about nutrition other than don't drink soda. So that's the first thing I got rid of, and that. After a couple of months, I lost 15 pounds because you're drinking a quart of that junk a day. You know what I mean? So it got me motivated. And then the whole exercise thing started, and then you begin to understand stuff. But still, out of nowhere, that hit me and set me into. Anyway, there's one other part to this app that you may be interested in. And anybody who's I have developed over a period of time, starting a long time ago, a series of audio tracks that I've sold independently but are now part of the app.
Okay.
And the app focuses on getting you into that sliver of consciousness in between waking and sleep, the twilight state, the hypnagogic state. And the way it does that is through storytelling. And the storytelling, adult fairy tale storytelling,
Sure.
is structured. Now, you ready for this?
I am.
Most of the time, while you're listening, you hear two stories played simultaneously. One story in each ear. Obviously, you're wearing headphones.
Sure.
The pace is very slow. There's music in the background. And what happens is, by the way, there is a lead story, a setup of a mimicking Joseph Campbell's Myth of the Hero. Person with a problem has to solve this problem, goes out in the world, meets a magical character, that sort of thing. Sure. And at that moment, that story pauses, the two simultaneous stories start up, and then you try to follow everything, but you can't. So your mind gets fatigued, it stops listening, you drift away, you drift into the hypnagogic state, where there are beta waves, not alpha waves, not delta waves, but the in-between space, which you experience every day as you drift off to sleep, but it's so short, you rarely, if ever, notice it. These audio programs keep you there. And then, using the words and the phrases from the stories themselves, I construct positive messages to change your thinking, your feeling, your sensing, and your behaving. It's a really good method for getting people in a good way out of their minds. So the app is basically now providing you with a really first-rate stress management tool, because when you tune out, you release every bit of stress in your body. Disappears completely.
Is this that hypno-peripheral processing?
That's correct.
Okay. I wanted to talk to you about this. I'm glad you brought this up. Cool.
Okay. Yeah, it's a really useful way to learn and change, because you don't have to do anything. This is the part of the consciousness continuum where you don't have to focus. It's not like this other part of what we were talking about, where I want people to be hyper aware of the sensations in their body, hyper aware of the cognitive patterns that they use, so they begin to shift them. Here, we want you to focus. Be aware of what's happening inside your head, right? Sure. But we also want you to be able to pick up useful information using another part of your brain. Hence, that theta state in between waking and sleep, which is amazingly powerful. So,
yeah, I've been doing a little bit more research as far as being in this kind of state of mind, and just so the viewers know, you're not actually talking about what we see on stage where they take a from you.
No.
Like, hey,
there's more myth about that than about anything. People know more about hypnosis. Look, to give people an understanding that they understand more than they realize. Everybody's had the experience of being zoned out, thinking about something. Mm-hmm. Somebody calls your name, they call your name again, and then on the third time, you suddenly go, oh yeah, that's a trance state.
Yeah.
In a very literal sense. We go in and out of trance all day long. So the whole idea is, can this state be harnessed in a useful way? And this is one of the ways it can be. I mean, I'm using this for a long time. It's good. It's a useful technology.
Yeah, they gave certain people have gave it a bad name where they say get up on stage and then they say you're getting sick.
Oh, you're talking about hypnosis in general, and
like act like a state, or act like a chicken or something, and then they're like, no, that's
those are people. You tell them anything, they would do that. I mean, that's yeah.
But yeah, Andrew Huberman and David Siegel is two I've been following. They have their own podcasts, and they're actually talking about hypnotic states and how it actually enhances your performance and your health.
Mm-hmm. Very useful.
Yeah, and that and getting into these hypnotic states is just actually just something as simple as just relaxing, putting your mind at ease, and then you get there and you don't even realize that you're even in that state. You're even having a full blown conversation, and that's what they even did. And that's what they even did on one of their experiments. And it was kind of really interesting to me that they're actually talking about how the two eyeballs are usually, they say they're the window of the soul, but it was actually, they're completely different as far as connected to the brain. And that they were talking about, if you look up, like you're trying to look up and then you try to shut your eyes, if your eyelids flutter, then they say you can be easily hypnotized or get into these hypnotic states. But if you just fully shut your lids, that it's a little bit harder for you to get into these certain states. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, but you can still get people into trance states by avoiding any direct suggestions to them, so they have nothing to resist. Yeah. And then afterwards, they're just into, you give them generic suggestions for thinking about something that's really important in their life, and they'll figure out a way how to solve it. It's hard to resist. Most people can go into a trance state. Anyway, but this is a different thing. This is because you're getting into a state between waking and sleep. It's different.
Okay. I'm with you now. Okay. Yeah. So you're between wake and sleep, you're in a different state. Okay.
So basically the whole idea is I want to cover the entire spectrum of consciousness. So all the way from hyper-awareness to in between waking and sleep, so that you can utilize the full capacities that you're capable of and be stimulated in ways that allow all of this to happen, right? The conscious mind stuff, which is critically important, being aware, making sure you can keep track of sensory information and cognitive stuff floating through your mind. Oh, by the way, one little bit of information I'm going to share with you and your listeners that I believe is critically important and somehow has managed to elude the culture in a way that would be valuable. Okay. We all know what the Heimlich Maneuver is, right?
Sure.
Right. Why does that happen? Food gets caught in your esophagus, right?
Right.
Okay. Why?
But it's too
eating
and fast.
Breathing. You don't breathe while you're eating, right? You just chew and swallow, because if you breathe, what's in your mouth is going to get stuck there. So how come occasionally that happens?
I don't know.
Think about that. You know why? I caught this once in my head and realized what it was.
What is it?
We have conversations going in our head. And when we are eating and have a conversation going, the rhythm of our breathing that would be taking place if we were talking out loud is mimicked to a very small degree while we're eating. So our windpipe opens a little bit at the precise moment it would have opened if we were talking out loud. Food gets sucked in at that moment. Okay? The reason why we never remember it is because we just experienced a life-threatening moment, which gives us complete amnesia for what preceded it.
Yeah.
My wife and I have become, we have whenever that happens to one of us where we get, it's not a life-threatening thing, but we all get food caught in our throat.
Sure.
We say to the other, who are you talking to? People would think we were nuts, right? Yeah. Because we weren't talking, what are you talking about? What do you mean, who are you talking to? That's what happens. So your audience now knows to keep aware of that. And everybody who's listening right now will be aware of that when it accidentally happens. They'll go, wow, I was talking to somebody. And by the way, if you're talking in anger in your head, it'll happen, more likely to happen.
Got it. Yeah. That's one of the sayings I've heard when doing these podcasts. Somebody actually mentioned something very similar that, and they basically said that you talk to yourself the most out of anybody else in the world, or you have the most conversations. And I never put that together. My mind was just like, wow, that makes so much sense.
It's absolute certainty. And the key thing is paying attention, because some of the stuff is nonsensical and driving each of us crazy, right? Yeah. Things will float across the screen. It's important to keep, what are you seeing in the screen? You ask somebody a question and you'll see that something just happened inside of that. Like in therapy, let's say, ask a question and you see something and you know what they were thinking about, but they might know. Do you really realize what you were just thinking about? What do you mean? I'll go back again. I'll ask the question. What just flashed across the screen of your mind? So the whole thing is awareness. Most of it is being aware of stuff. Sometimes learning can take place outside of awareness. We want everything thrown into the mix to give you as many options and many different kinds of stimulation to try to become the best representation of yourself.
Does any of this play into the subconscious?
Well, when you're listening to the programs, most of I tell people, the less you remember after listening to one of these programs, not the LQ stuff, but the HPP stuff, the Hypno-Peripheral Processing, the less you remember of these storytelling programs, the more effective it's been.
Yeah. Well, and I like that you're saying that you're doing a storytelling part too, just because going back to our, say the origin of our species, storytelling was kind of the thing to be, as far as people would reach out to storytellers and want to go listen to them. And everyone loved a good story then, right?
Your point is so well taken.
Yeah.
When you ask people, when you think about an individual, when you think about yourself, the single most important thing that represents who you are is your story.
Mm-hmm.
Right? When you meet a friend you haven't met in a while, what happens? You catch up.
Sure.
You tell them what has happened since the last time you filled in the gaps in your story, and vice versa. No, we are storytelling creatures. So any information that's presented in a storytelling format has a much better chance of being utilized. I mean, you can have the most boring professor in the world talking, and in the middle of him talking about the stuff that he's boring you with, he says, this reminds me of a story. Immediately, everybody starts listening. Oh, story time. Because when you're little kids, what's the most important thing?
Love story.
Story time.
Yeah, always ask your parents, hey, read a story before I go to bed.
Story. We're about stories. Yeah, absolutely.
And it's a great art. It goes unnoticed. Comedians use it in their acts, as far as like when they release their material, as far as the story, you're following along, you're into it, what's going to happen. And yeah, it's just, like I said, it was easily forgotten. And you have great storytellers and you have bad storytellers. But yeah, it's exactly. Everyone loves a good story, especially when you can give it like information out, people follow it. Everyone's got their different ways of learning. But yeah, most people seem to stick to that type. That's how I would.
Joseph Campbell's myths were all about stories, right? They're the greatest stories of all time, right?
That's an excellent point. Yeah. Yeah, he got a lot of people following him for sure based on.
I'll say we should all have the kind of following that he has because he's forever.
Yeah.
He's a mythic character in and of himself.
Yeah, that's a good. Oh man, I never heard that before. But yeah, that's a great point. That he led a whole thing with that. Just we don't have to go down that road though.
It's for another conversation.
But that's funny though. But yeah, and it's all right. So I know we're getting a little short on time here, but I'm guessing, has the app already released? Is it out for people?
It's available, and the nice part of it is we've set this thing up for. It doesn't cost you anything for 30 days, so you can test this thing out. You can play with it. You can do everything you want with it. You have a full month to find out whether you think it's useful. Won't cost you a dime.
Wow, that's what. Yeah, I love it. We'll take it for.
Why not? I mean, I want people to want to use this thing. I want people to give this thing a shot because I think they'll find it useful. And what's more, useful is maybe the most useful term we have. Right? Is something useful? Good. It's good. Period. Right? So that's I'm looking for people. Test it out. See whether it fits who you are. How
long did it take you to develop this app? I mean, was it just something you've been working on for years? Was it
the app went from the time I wrote the article to the time we started to develop it was probably a year from article written to starting to do it. So figure 2019, 2021. This is like a 3 years in the making kind of project. So it's separate from the audio series, which was developed before, and I put it together because they fit together perfectly, covering everything. But that also took a decade to do, all that audio material.
I guess this kept you pretty busy during COVID, though, with all trying to get this together. Yeah,
it's perfect timing for this because right now, more than any other time, we're health conscious.
Sure.
And we're mental health conscious.
Sure.
I mean, let's face it, this messed up a lot of people.
I did.
And everything got disrupted. So whatever can be done, tools to get people to be able to take control of their lives again, why not?
Yeah.
What I'm doing, fortunately, I think fits with the time at the moment.
Yeah, no, I said it earlier. I think this is one of the pros of the pandemic is that more people, or hopefully more people, are starting to become more health conscious and, learning that, hey, what can I do to be healthier? And if and when, who knows if a pandemic comes up again, if we're still in it,
Well, I
sure,
mean,
there could be more prepared.
your point is the point when it comes to, if there's one thing about the pandemic that we learned, is the healthier you were, the more likely you would survive. Because a
Exactly.
lot of people didn't take good care of themselves, and a lot of people died.
Yeah.
So, I mean, whatever life should be lived according to whatever you can control, you must control, because there's too many things we don't have control over. So whatever you can do to take control of your life and sustain it, do it.
Do you find
only got one shot at this thing, as far as we know.
that's the truth? Do you find that a lot of people are living on momentum and just kind of not really thinking about their choices and just kind of going down the road, taking it day by day? Then 10 years go down the road and they realize, oh, wait, what did I do? That kind of makes sense, what I asked?
Yeah. I'm not sure I see it as that many folks that I've come across like that, but I've had enough where it's like, hello, get a map, know where you are, have a place in your mind where you want to get to,
Yeah.
right? And then focus on that, because that allows you to use the momentum and the energy to have the goal that you're in. It's important to go after stuff, right? Yeah, I agree.
Do you think that, well, no, this is good. This is what I want to know. So, when you were talking about growing up, 50s, 60s, did you ever see yourself to be in this position promoting
Never.
like this? You never would have
Not
thought?
a chance. There was no way in hell I would ever have imagined that I would be ending up who I am talking to you right now about issues like that. No. There was a moment in time that I wasn't very impressed with myself. Consequently, the idea of doing anything of any consequence, no. That slowly evolved over time.
Wow. Yeah.
Fortunately, I married somebody who had more, she saw things in me that I never saw. And
That's great.
I got lucky.
People need that, man. That's great. And I'm glad you came on here and you were telling that story and just, you made the change, and you could have easily just kept going down the same road. And
I know what it is to have done everything wrong. Everything, blind, deaf, and dumb. Seriously.
Well,
so
yeah.
I'm talking from experience.
Yeah. And that's great that you can admit that. I feel like a lot of people today's age don't want to admit when they're wrong or did something wrong, but you own it. You're taking responsibility for it. You're like, hey, I decided I want to make a change, and we're going to do it.
No. And making changes, once you realize that you can make a change, there's a real positive ripple effect. Like, wait a minute, if I can do this, then I can do other things. And then you suddenly begin to change your self-perception. And people underestimate what they're capable of. I see in my practice all the time. People underestimate what they're capable of. Part of my job is to tell somebody, when I can see what they can do, I tell them, hey, you realize you can do this. And they'll say, how do you know that? I said, I'm in the business of knowing that. You can do this. You said, you sure? I said, yeah. I once did this with a guy who was going to be a lawyer. And I said, you're going to be really good at this one day. He said, how do you know that? I said, I know that. I didn't see him for another 20 years. And I bumped into him on the street.
Yeah.
And I said, how you doing? And he said, great. He said, by the way, I've been doing really well. You told me that. How did you know that? I said, that's part of what I'm supposed to know how to do. He said, you told me that. I said, how did it? And then it happened. Yeah, well, okay. Yeah. When people know when I talk to people, I can sense when they can know how to do something, but they don't know it yet. I like that. Yeah. Okay, we have something to work with here.
I wonder what would really bother his mind if you never would have told him that, if he would have thought that. He would have still...
He probably would have still succeeded, but the whole thing of like, somebody knew that before I knew that. Before the person knew that. Somebody could see that. Yeah, you can see when people know what they're doing and are good at it. Yeah, but they don't know that yet.
Dr. Lloyd, you've been great, man. I appreciate you being here. If people want to find you, if they want to find the app, they want to find, anything you want to plug, promote, feel free to do that.
Okay, well, it's the Lifestyle Intelligence app, Lifestyle Intelligence LQ, or it's in the Apple Store, the LQ app. You can go to the website, Lifestyle Intelligence LQ. It'll lead you there. Anything, my name will pop up. You'll find it. It's there. and hopefully you'll test it out. Hopefully you like it and find it useful.
Give it a run.
I very much appreciate you taking the time to speak with me. It's been an absolute delight for me.
Oh, thank you. Thank you I had a lot of fun. It was a fun conversation. I'm glad you did this with me. So
maybe someday we do it again.
I would love to. I know we have more to talk about, especially with your background. But are you a golfer? Did you used to play golf? Or are you a golfer? Or did you write a book on golf?
I tried playing golf. It wasn't one of the things I did well, but I was a great caddy.
Okay. I thought I had something in your background about you writing a book on golf, or you played golf. Or
no. I have a golf program.
That's what it was.
HPP series.
Oh, okay, that's what it was.
And it's useful. So anybody has interested in improving their golf game, there is a Hypno-Peripheral Processing golf program.
Love it. Great, cool. Thanks for being here. Anything else you want to say before we?
No, we're good. I enjoyed every moment of it.
Cool. Thanks, Dr. Lloyd. All right, bye everybody. We're out here.
Take care.